2024 marks the 40th anniversary of LEGO Castle being an evergreen theme, meaning that it had regular production releases. Now, the line continued all the way up through 2013 and then went on a hiatus until 2021. Now, over the last couple of years, 2021 to 2024, we have seen some incredible sets released that are medieval or castle based. And it got me thinking, are we in a, or even the, golden era of LEGO Castle? So in this video, I am going to present the argument for why we are, why we aren't, then tell you which side I fall on, and then finally tell you what all of this means for the future of LEGO Castle sets. The argument for why we are in a, if not the golden era of LEGO Castle stems from the sets that LEGO has produced detailing castles and medieval life since 2021. And what's important to note about all of these sets is just how highly rated and regarded they are by LEGO fans. Starting in 2021, we received the Castle 3-in-1 from Creator, and that is a 4.3 out of 5 bricks on Brickset.com. Now that may not sound like it's all that high, but note that it is the highest rated Creator set of that year. But also that year, we got the Medieval Blacksmith, an idea set that has a 4.7 rating out of 5 on Brickset. And as if that wasn't good enough, the Lionites Castle in 2022 is rated a 4.8, and this year's Medieval Town Square is a 4.8 as well. Both of those sets are in the top 10 highest rated sets of all time on Brickset.com. Add into that the Viking Village, which came out in 2023 at a 4.6 out of 5, and you've got a pretty good lineup of sets. Now, if that was it, maybe I wouldn't make the argument that we are in a golden era, but we get more than that, right? We also have some promotional sets that are available on Bricklink or eBay, and you can find them on Bricklink for 25 to 30 bucks, namely the Forest Hideout, as well as Magisto's Magical Tower. Then you have a lot of the collectible minifig series that includes some medieval characters and castle-like characters. You also have the Lionites from the Lionite Castle mixed into the Build a Minifig section at the LEGO store. You have the Disney Castle, you've got the Castle Bed and Breakfast for Friends that was just released, and you also have a variety of other nods to the castle line from other themes. And that doesn't even include all of the Harry Potter sets that we've received in 2021, the new reiteration of the Hogwarts Castle, and again this year, 2024. So there's lots of really cool castle items out there for those of us who really enjoy LEGO Castle. Now, another argument for why we're in a golden era, or even the golden era of LEGO Castle, stems from the factions that we are getting in some of these sets. We've had a rebirth of some of the great factions from the 1980s and 1990s. We had the Lionites, an updated version of them, the Black Falcons, the Forestmen, the Wolf Pack, even the Dragon Knights, and Magisto himself. All of these factions carry some nostalgia from the 1980s and 1990s, and fans really enjoy seeing those factions back in circulation. So all in all, a lot going on with LEGO Castle, and certainly more than we saw during the 2014 to 2020 era, when the only thing we would get was the occasional promotional set. I think there was one promotional set that was marked Castle back in that era. And that, of course, doesn't include some of the other minifigs and other lines that might have harkened back to Castle at that moment in time. But that's also, I think, where the no argument begins. I think there are three key arguments for why we are not in a, or even the golden era of LEGO Castle. The first one being that we've actually had a lot of call-outs to Castle even during the 2014 to 2020 hiatus, right? You had some of the collectible minifigs. You had the 2016 Disney Castle. You also had quite a few other sets that harkened back to castles, like the 2018 Harry Potter line. And I know that it's not a medieval context, but you do get some really good pieces for building castles. So the fact remains, we did not see a complete blank slate when it came to LEGO Castle. We just didn't see anything that was medieval context during those years that was an actual set and provided us with the pieces we would want to build medieval type structures. But there are two arguments I think go even further than this that are more convincing for why we are not. The first one also touches on the nostalgia factor. Castle LEGO in 2021 through 2024 is really nothing new in terms of breaking ground with factions or even ideas for sets. Now, that's not inherently a critique of the sets or what LEGO is doing, rather, it's more of an argument against why we are not in a golden era. Check it out, all the themes I mentioned before are remakes and updates from the 1980s and early 1990s. This nostalgia that they are creating is a powerful component for why people are buying these sets. And I'm not critical of that in as much as I am saying that that's why it's not golden era. How can you be in a golden era if what you're doing is calling back to a previous era? To me, that would make that previous era, the 80s and 90s, more of the golden era than current. And if you think about it, these themes and factions are fantastic. I love seeing the updated Lion Knights and the Black Falcons, especially, and the Forestmen. Some of my favorite sets from the 1980s and early 1990s came from those factions. But they are taking those ideas and just rebranding them for millennials and Gen Xers who, in their 40s and 50s, are in peak income earning capacity. And that leads me to the next argument, I think maybe even the most convincing argument for why we are not in a golden era, and that is, look at the price of these sets. If you take a look at just the ones that were officially for sale, they're all large. Look at the Lion Knights Castle, $400, over $200 for the medieval town square. If you wanted to bring in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs Cottage, that's over $200. You add into that the $150 for the medieval blacksmith, $140 for the Viking Village, $100 for the cheapest one, the 3-in-1 Creator Castle, and you start to see a pattern. These are not sets designed for your typical LEGO fan. They're designed for adult fans with a high amount of disposable income. Now, we are fortunate enough that through the revenue we bring in from the YouTube channel, as well as some side gigs that I have, I've been able to earn money to buy these sets. But not everyone can do that. This may be a golden era for some LEGO fans, but not all LEGO Castle fans. So where do I fit in on the yes, we're in a golden era versus no? Well, I'm going to take, for now, the no side, because I think the last two arguments in particular, that is predicated on nostalgia and it's only a golden era for some people, overweigh the evidence that we are. Importantly, I want to contrast what we're seeing right now with what we saw in what I would consider to be the golden peak era of LEGO Castle, 1984 to 1993. Now, I might do a whole separate video on why I think that's a golden era, but there were a couple of characteristics that I want to highlight from that time period. The first was the thought and deliberation that went into releasing the sets during that era. You had initially a couple of factions, you had the Lion Knights and the Black Falcons, and then LEGO slowly introduced other factions into the castle theme. The Forestmen in 1986, you get the Black Knights later on, you get the Wolf Pack after that, and finally in 1993, you get the Dragon Knights. These were an indication that LEGO was deliberately thinking how they wanted to unveil the sets and develop different storylines as fans were getting these sets. The other important element to this is that you had numerous entrance points for LEGO fans. You had $3 to $10 sets, and you also had the more expensive sets like the King's Castle that was, I think, $60-some back in 1984. So you had all these different levels that LEGO fans could appreciate, whether they were on a smaller budget or a larger budget. Not only that, but you could get really nice exclusive minifigs in some of the smaller sets. A good example of this is the Blacksmith from 1984, which has a unique Blacksmith minifig. It has a brown cape, plastic cape that they used in that era, and it's a really hard minifig, and particularly the cape is a hard piece to find on Bricklink or elsewhere today. That was a small set. You had another small set, the Armor Shop, back in the 1980s that had some great accessories, including a black short sword and the 2x2 Rampant Lion flag, which is one of my all-time favorite pieces. Even the Black Falcon's flag from the Black Falcon's Fortress in 1986 was a medium level set in terms of price. So you had all these really cool pieces, accessories, and minifigs across all the different price points in the range. And that allowed fans to get some really cool pieces and accessories regardless of what their budget was. To me, those characteristics are what made LEGO from 1984 to 1993 the peak era for Castle. What are the implications of all of this for the future of LEGO Castle? And I think it's a little bit of a mixed bag. On the one hand, in the positive side of things, you've got clear demand for LEGO Castle and Medieval Life sets. You see this with the Lionites Castle. They clearly saw demand for that, giving us the Medieval Town Square. You also saw the success of sets like the Ideas Medieval Blacksmith, which helped, I think, LEGO decide to do the Ideas Viking Village, which was, again, I think, a successful set. So you might see more of those. The fact that LEGO's used creator, icons, and ideas to satiate our demand for LEGO Castle sets means that LEGO can be nimble, and they don't have to dedicate all of the resources and new molds and creating new factions for a whole theme that's going to have a dozen or so sets every single year. And it's a little bit less to produce because for some of the direct-to-consumer sets, they cut out the middleman and they send it right to the generic LEGO public through lego.com and LEGO stores. So there's a positive that I think we're going to see more sets because these sets are doing well. However, the negative side of this is that if you want to ensure that LEGO Castle sets continue beyond the window of nostalgia for 1980s and 1990s LEGO, you're going to have to cultivate a new audience. And the best way to do that for LEGO is to tap into the children's demographic. Now, I don't know the tastes of 6 to 12-year-olds right now. I have 2 kids that are in that age target range, and they do like some of the medieval stuff, but they could be non-representative of the greater children population. And so something like a Ninjago would be a great way to put together LEGO Castle, where you have sets on the lower end of the price range all the way up through the Ninjago City sets, which are for adults. And if you want to guarantee LEGO Castle in 10, 15, 20 years, that's going to be a better way of doing it than just a lot of one-off sets through icons, creator, and ideas. Now, those can always continue based on how well they sell and the execution of the sets. But again, if you want to guarantee more Castle LEGO, start appealing to the kids and getting them to buy into it, because then in 10, 15, 20 years, as they start graduating from high school, from college, they have more disposable income, they will be able to spend it on their nostalgia sets from their childhood, rather than relying on the good old days from when their parents and grandparents were growing up. So I guess what I'm saying is I hope that LEGO Castle evolves from being predicated on luxury items for the older, wealthier, and dedicated Castle fans to the more common LEGO fans to then reinvest into Castle in 15, 20 years. That would be ideal in my opinion. Let me know what you think down below. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and always remember to keep building together.